Hi everyone, this is chapter 4, How People Change for Counseling 4000. What is change? So the book starts out by telling us that there's different types of changes. There's immediate changes, so things that change in the immediate moment right now, and then there's long-term change, which means that it takes a while to get to that point, and as we look at it over time, things have changed. How to prevent the same problems from occurring again, and how to develop a worthwhile future. So that kind of talks about what coming to receive services is all about, right? Which is that we have problems that we're trying to change because maybe it's unhealthy, not benefiting us, and so now we want to change it to something that is long lasting, is positive, it is going to help you grow. Involves giving up a way of being, an old habit, accepting one's diagnosis. So those are just examples of ways where you might change your life because of certain reasons, right? So involves giving up a way of being. So maybe it is in a negative way, an unhealthy way, let's say such as domestic violence. And then an old habit might be something like an addiction, smoking cigarettes. Accepting one's diagnosis, so maybe as we get older, we acquire a disability of some sort. So how do we deal with that? There's also fear, uncertainty, which basically means like, I don't know what's going to happen. Stubbornness, which means like, no, I don't have a problem, so I'm not going to change. Denial, lack of confidence, lack of hope, inevitability to envision the future. So those are reasons why our changes might actually not happen so fast, because there's some moments that pull us back, make us hesitate. Takes commitment and hard work. Again, working with someone to change can take quite a bit of time, and it takes a while because the way that we do things now, we're so comfortable with it. Whether or not it's good for us or not good for us is not the point. It's just we are familiar with it and we know what's going to happen, so we often just stay that way. Helpers, you are going to help support that hard work and commitment by cheerleading, by encouraging, and by providing services and resources that are going to help the person. So stages of change. So before we go into the actual model that we're going to cover in this chapter, we always have to talk about motivational interviewing by Miller and Rolnick. So they developed MI, and it falls under Carl Rogers' humanist perspective, which is about being self-directed. So oftentimes when it comes to changing, sometimes people don't even realize that they have a problem or they're doing something that's not healthy for them, okay? So it is actually a whole massive amount of phases that a person has to go through. And so motivational interviewing, if you ever have the opportunity to take a workshop on motivational interviewing, please take it. It is expensive, so if someone's going to provide for you, like your agency, your workplace, please do it. I somehow saw one in the San Gabriel Valley that they were offering. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go. So it was a 2-day workshop, and I got so much out of it. It's so important. But we want to also talk about Carl Rogers because of the humanist perspective, and oftentimes with the humanist perspective, we're very person-centered. We are very client-centered, which means that the client is really the one who gets to decide if they want to do anything. The client probably already knows the answer to how to solve their problems, but for some reason, there's something that's blocking them, okay? So by talking with them, by being with them, that's a very person-centered approach, and so is motivational interviewing. And you'll start to get it as we go into the DiClemente and Velasquez model about change, because it'll show you all the different processes, which are heavily, you can tell, is heavily inspired by or influenced by motivational interviewing. All right, change is a process. There are 5 stages a person might go through as they work towards changing. The original model for this by DiClemente and Velasquez was about helping pregnant mothers stop smoking. All right, let's talk about stage 1, pre-contemplation. So the pre means before here, right? So contemplation means thinking. So before you think, right? So not really thinking about change and therefore not ready to change. You're not aware that you have a problem. That's what they're saying at this time, right? They don't see the need to change. They tried in the past and maybe it's unsuccessful, so maybe change isn't for them. That's what at least they're thinking. So as a helper, you might go something like, may I invite you to look at how you're behaving? Okay. Listen to why the client is reluctant to change. Explore the challenges that they see in their life. Accept them for who they are currently. It is their decision to change if they want. And if you're ready to, we can go to the next step. If not, it's okay too. So you can sort of see right here is we're not attacking them. We're going to talk about the fact that they're here, right? And that they're, let's talk about your life. What's making you happy right now? What's challenging you right now? And they might start saying like, right now, I'm drinking a lot and I got 4 DUIs, but I don't think I have a problem. I can handle it, right? But at the same time, those 4 DUIs prevent them from getting certain services or, they're being mandated to come here. So what is that all about, right? And it's not about you going, well, see, don't you see that you have to change now? Instead, it's having them, as you talk to them, go, oh, you know what? Maybe in comparison to my other friends, I do drink a little bit too much or something like that. Okay. So again, it's about listening. It's about asking them what's going on right now in their lives and seeing whether or not they're even aware of certain things. And if so, is it affecting them in the bigger picture? Stage 2 is contemplation. So once they're starting to realize, oh, you know what? Having no driver's license is a big deal, right? And I can change it if I want to. So willing to explore, but not yet willing to commit to change. So now they're thinking about it. Maybe I should. This is ambivalence, about making changes. And ambivalence is just a fancy word for mixed feelings. So you're like, I don't know if I should do it or not. You're kind of hesitant. You don't really know, what it is that is really going to benefit you from this whole thing. So here's a script. You aren't really feeling good about doing this. So you're admitting to, like when you're repeating it or you're saying this to your client, you're letting them know that there is some hesitation. There may have been some fear that you're going to force them to make changes that they're not ready to make. Reassure the person that the decision is up to the client. So this is very person-centered, very Carl Rogers, which is, hey, you came here, right? And now we're explaining the process of what change can be. And if you don't feel like you're ready, it's okay. You don't have to do it, right? You are always free to decide what you want to do. You can, and so we hope that you do, but we're not going to force you, because if we force you, it's going to be probably going to be more challenging and more problematic for everyone because of it. So it's really letting them know, that the option is really theirs. They are the one in control of all this. All right, let's talk about the risks and benefits of change. So if they aren't kind of hesitant about this or ambivalent about it, let's examine it all, right? Any good points to the ways things are now? What are some of the bad things about the current situation? So ask them to list these things. What are some risks if you decide to change? So what are they maybe a little scared about or concerned about? And then what are some rewards for changing? So what happens if they do change? What if they stop drinking? What are some of the good stuff that can result from it? And having a client actually talk it out so that they realize it or write it out will actually stick in their minds a lot more than just having them just thinking about it and not saying it out loud, not sharing it and stuff like that. All right, stage 3 is developing a plan. So you're ready to change, but you need a plan, right? And this is a time where you, as a trained professional, are going to help collaborate with them. You and the client will aim to find the best plan of action. So basically a treatment plan, right? Goals and objectives. When the client has tried to change the past, what did they learn? So let's learn from our mistakes in the past. Let's brainstorm whatever ideas come to mind. So let's just think of all the possibilities and let's see which ones are realistic, achievable, and attractive to you as the client trying to change all of this, right? We really want them to be fully participating in this whole thing. Stage 4 is implementing the plan. Practice changing the thinking or behavior of the old habit. So now you're actually going to do it, right? We've talked about it. We planned it. Like these are the steps. These are the objectives to reach these goals. So now let's start doing them. Okay. It will feel new, which means that it's going to feel strange. It is normal to feel uncertain and awkward. Yeah, you're going to giggle to yourself. You're going to giggle out like, this is weird, and all this other stuff because you don't know what's happening. Because change is new and the unknown. Okay, and you gotta want to encourage your clients for doing it because it's a little scary. Have you ever tried something new before? You're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But sometimes it actually turns out really good. All right, some will miss the old ways, what used to be, because it's so comfortable. It's so easy to just sit back, and eat frozen pizzas and Chipotle and McDonald's because you're like, I know exactly what I'm getting, right? But when you have to eat something new, like, I don't know, a salad, or, something with beans or whatever, it's going to go, I don't know about this. This is tasting weird. Like, you put some tahini sauce on it or whatever. You're like, what are these flavors? I don't know any of this stuff. This is weird. But you actually might like it. All right, reflect your feelings when you paraphrase. So this is a technique that we use in counseling, which is when you're listening to them talk, you choose an emotion that you think describes what they're talking about. And that's when you reflect with feeling or paraphrase with feeling. So it might be they're talking about, let's say it is they are leaving their family because they've been abusive, right? So you can say something that sounds like you were really frustrated about the whole situation, but you're feeling maybe a little bit relieved now that you are able to get out of the house and go to this, workshop or something like that, right? So you're choosing keywords to use so that your client can hear it and see whether or not you're using the right feelings for them. Because if you say those things and like, no, actually, I feel this way. You're like, oh, okay, good. Thank you so much for clarifying. I understand what you're talking about now. So again, this is a time for encouragement, because you need someone to cheer for you, cheer you on. All right. Stage 5 is maintaining the changes. Now that they are ready to make changes, so now that they're starting to do it, but they're doing it more often, like maybe regularly, right? So we want to make sure that these changes are permanent in their life. Each person's efforts will vary in time. So some people, it will take longer than others. Some might do it really fast and then go back because they're like, whoa, that was just too much change. So again, you have to have patience when working with people, and you have to recognize and read their body language, what they're saying, to understand, how they're doing when it comes to the progress of change. Consider what are challenges getting in the way of long-term change. So are there still triggers around? Is the environment supporting change? So let's talk about triggers, right? So let's say that you are trying to stop smoking. And one of the places where you smoke a lot is with your friends after class, right? So if you know that going out after class with your friends, you want to, smoke a cigarette, maybe you're going to go, you know what? Instead of going out to hang out with them, after that, say, hey, I'm actually really hungry. I'm going to go over to the food court. Can you guys meet me there when you guys are done? And then, we can continue this conversation or whatever, right? So that will no longer trigger you because you're going to go over to a place where there is no smoking allowed. And so it's not going to tempt you to want to light up, right? Obviously, sometimes there are things where you're like, these people are just not healthy for me. I just don't want to hang out with them at all in general. But there are times where you can do some sort of like negotiation compromise. And then when it comes to, is the environment supporting change? Your family, your loved ones, are they supporting you while you're trying to, let's say, lose weight? Maybe they're like, I don't need to lose weight, but if you want to lose weight, you can. And that's really great that you're not eating McDonald's with me anymore. Are they supportive or are they not, right? Are they going to try and tempt you? Even though they know that you're trying to do something good for yourself, maybe it's for diabetes, right? But are they going to support you? And sometimes they don't. And so we need to figure that out. All right, when it comes to maintaining the changes, follow-up is important at this stage. So you as the caseworker or the counselor or the helper, you always want to say, hey, I'm just checking in, see what's going on, right? Let's talk a little bit about, is there any challenges or is everything good? Tell me a little bit about what's going on. Point out the successes to the client. So again, if they were, let's say, trying to stop smoking cigarettes and they were smoking a pack a day and now they're smoking 3/4 of a pack a day, You have got to point that out, like, hey, you're smoking this many less cigarettes a day. That is pretty amazing. And you add that all up, in a year, how many cases of or packs of cigarettes is that, But I also know that you want to stop smoking completely. So, I think you're on your way, and I think that's really fantastic. And I hope that you're very genuine and authentic when you are supporting your clients, right? I hope you really do feel proud of them and you believe in them. Address any new problems that come up as they are in the stage. So again, you're going to talk about, hey, just checking in, tell me a little bit about what's going on, what are some challenges, and let's work on those things. They might go back to their old ways, which again is sometimes it's common. It's not, rare that people go back, They might have lost friends. Again, we talked about triggers and stuff like that. Doubt about maintaining new behaviors. Yeah, they're going to always be worried that it can always come back. If you've ever talked to someone who's gone through addiction, that is a constant thing that they think about, especially when they're times of stress and stuff like that they think about. And this is why having a sponsor, having a support network is so important when it comes to change. All right, we talked really briefly about relapse. So some people may not be able to sustain their new behaviors over a long period of time. It's okay. They're trying really, really hard, and we need to applaud that. But people do get sick, right? Or at least we consider relapsing kind of like getting sick. Typically, we're healthy, right? But we do get sick every once in a while. So relapsing is like that as well. People do relapse, and then they get better again, right? And we want to see it that way. We don't want to see relapse as a failure. Okay. All right. They may return to their addiction. They may stop taking medication. They might return to an abusive relationship. It's slow at first. It's a slip up, but then it starts to increase. And we're hoping that those changes will finally affect them in a way where they're like, I really do want to try this. But again, temptation, old ways of behaving, especially when you're stressed out or something has triggered you, is so easy to fall back into, right? So again, checking in with your clients about stuff is so important. Do not punish them. Do not yell at them. Do not scold them. If they have relapse, it is okay. We're going to try it again. You want to talk about their attempts over their failures, because they tried and they were able to, let's say, be sober for a certain amount of time or cigarette free for a certain amount of time. What did they learn while they were successful? So what are the things that were meaningful to them, at that time period? Then what is something we need to change around this time? So what was the trigger that maybe have caused all of this again for the relapse? And let's try to avoid those as well or change those things. So you want to talk through this relapse and then together look at how the relapse happened. So again, we're going to examine it. Identify what is likely to bring a relapse. Note the early signs when it comes to that. Prepare a prevention plan for how a relapse should be handled if it occurs again. And that's it. The rest of the chapter are case study examples, so please read through on your own about the 5 stages and how they're applied to various different people.